Well, it is plausible, Laura. I mean, I've seen some amazing cosplays in my day, including of you. We opened this week with Sango taking a look at the new product placement. I mean, totally real lipstick that you'd find at any higher-end store and not just tiny little bits of plastic. Well, that was a scene, and after the opening, we just cut over to the next day at school with Manatsu delivering a very painful-looking headbutt to her desk. Seriously, girl, I'd be more careful if I were you. She was frustrated over having not been able to pick a club to join yet, so like a bunch of vultures, her classmates tried to lure her into their respective clubs by striking up a conversation. Ultimately, she still couldn't decide, but regardless, they all decided to get to know each other better by hanging out at the shopping mall over the weekend. Laura, who had some insane balance for someone with no legs, went into full tsundere mode and pretended like she didn't want to go. She of course then tried to weasel her way in, but it was too late as Manatsu gave her multiple thumbs up and told her to just take the day off. Seriously, I just love this little animation here and really want a gif of it right now. I don't know, maybe it's because the guy I have on my back was known for his thumbs ups. At the shopping mall, they found some very obvious in-jokes as well as their teacher. Could somebody remind me why Hideri wasn't cast as a cure for the season? Later, they all partook in some ice cream, except for Sango, who gave her cone away to a little girl. It was a nice character-establishing moment, showing her generosity and thoughtfulness towards others, which would become a lot more significant throughout this episode. Anyway, having had their fill at the mall, the group decided to go to the aquarium next. There, they shared what was their favorite aquatic creatures, including jellyfish, the relatives of the best boy from the last season, and Manatsu's pick, the giant isopod. Well, can't say she has bad taste. Seriously, this guy was my ace in Sun and Moon. During all of this, Sango further displayed her thoughtfulness by returning a lost wallet, but ended up getting separated from the group. As a result, I think she ended up in the employees-only part of the aquarium, and was close enough to the vacant pools that she could hear Laura? Wait, how did she get to the aquarium? I mean, we clearly saw Manatsu leave her at home, so did she like bounce her way there in the aquapod? But then how would she know how to get there?
Well, you got me. By all accounts, it doesn't make sense.
Well, whatever, it gave us an excuse for these two to meet. Sango ended up quickly winning Laura over thanks to calling her cute a few times. Again, this fish's ego is bigger than the entire ocean, and just based on that, she offered her the second tropical pact. It didn't react immediately, and Laura just instantly took it back. Crazy thought here, Laura, but did you ever think that you might be giving up too easily? I mean, you know for a fact that Manatsu couldn't use the pack initially, but eventually she got it to work. Just saying, if you're willing to give this thing to just about everyone, you could at least invest some time into seeing if they could use it under the right circumstances. Anyway, Laura hid when the other girls arrived, and once again, Sango displayed how thoughtful she was by hiding the fact that she met the mermaid, who clearly didn't want to be found out. They did end up meeting the pseudo-mermaids when they visited the manatees. Through this, Sango at least wanted to point out that mermaids were cute, but ultimately relented to her classmates' opinions when they pointed out how the manatee looked funny. This would very visibly bother her, and later she would even confirm her regrets for not sharing what she considered cute. Yeah, I could guess where this was going, but I won't say anything just yet. For now, I'll just point out the great subtle storytelling here with Sango constantly siding with the group majority during this trip, even though she also kind of wanted to side with the one detractor, Manatsu. This pattern continued into the next day during lunch when she got what everyone else was getting, and our lead character went against the grain and went with the much better choice in my opinion. Seriously, yakisoba bread is delicious. However, Sango then decided to finally break rank and went with Manatsu when she decided to go eat on the roof. This gave her the opportunity to admit that she was kind of envious of her free spirit. Apparently, Sango was afraid of going against the grain as a result of an incident in kindergarten where they were given an assignment to raise a tulip. Everyone was given a choice of what colored tulip they wanted to go with, and in spite of everyone else going with pink, Sango went with purple because she thought it was cute. However, she came to regret this decision after seeing how her little flower stood out amongst everyone else's. And while everyone didn't tease her over this, it did kind of traumatize her, and as a result, she decided to always go with the group thing from then on. I think I've mentioned this before, but it does bear repeating. Japan is a very high context culture. Basically, it means that you're kind of expected to just know all of the proper social cues and traditions just so that you can follow along with what the group was thinking. I won't necessarily say this is a bad mindset, but it is a flawed one as it tends to reject individualism. Thankfully, in recent years, Japan has been moving away from this being the absolute mindset and have embraced a little bit more individualism, but it is still ingrained in many people's heads like Sango's. More so because of this Tulip incident, which as mundane as it might seem, can leave a very strong impression on a still developing child's brain. While a high context mindset can lead to some sincere tendencies like Sango has exhibited, it can also anchor down free thought. Anyway, this resulted in Laura exploding out over this girl's lack of confidence in what she finds cute. I don't know, Laura. I wouldn't necessarily trust every cute thing, just saying. After learning that they already knew each other, Manatsu naturally nominated her friend as the next cure, but Laura again shot down that notion, more so now after seeing Sango's lack of confidence. This would end up being put to the test as it was time for the Monster of the Week fight with Chongwei again? You know, for someone who claims to be lazy, this crustacean puts in a lot of work. Seriously, I checked, and it's a little uncommon for the first general to be the villain for the first 3 episodes of the series. They usually switch out by this point. Not complaining or anything, because I do think he's an entertaining villain. It's just something I kind of noticed. Anyway, he created a more sterile version of Garbodor, prompting Manatsu into action. And when their classmates started to suspect Laura was creating the monsters based on eyewitness accounts, Sango decided not only to not side with the majority, but also prove them wrong. Manatsu transformed and engaged the monster, while Laura, having gotten used to this pattern, got ready to take back the motivation energy. However, in a nice shakeup, Chongwei had actually caught on to their tactic, and wisely had his monster focus on the cleric first. Seeing her friends in trouble, Sango finally gained the confidence to trust in her own choices, and of course, gained her little ring. With that, we finally got to see her transformation sequence, which was okay. I mean, there's not a lot actually wrong with it or anything. It's smooth and technically sound. It's just that Manatsu's insanely energetic sequence was always going to be a tough act to follow. This was a far more reserved, though also pretty intricate sequence, so it actually does match up well with Sango's personality as we've established, and with her fighting style as we'll soon see. Overall though, I would say the best part of this whole sequence is just getting to see the full design of Sango's Precure outfit. Again, I really love that hat. And right off the bat, we learned her role in this team as the tank that could use defensive spells, because I guess coral is hard like a rock, though it's not exactly a rock either. Well, in any case, they seem to use most of the animation budget on these shield sequences because the rest of the fight didn't look nearly as good. I mean, they were still really smooth sequences, but the cures also look more than a little off-model as though their limbs had suddenly stretched a few inches. Still, at least Sango's finisher was really good, as while I think Manatsu might be hogging all of the animation budget, this was a much more reserved sequence that fits Sango well, plus I always like a good old Macross missile massacre. Also, it looks like blowing bubbles is gonna be a thing with this whole team, which I think is awesome, as it means that all of these girls are gonna pay tribute to Roddy Piper. With that, the day was won, and the episode ended with the girls once again going out shopping, and Sango finally sharing her ideas of cuteness with everyone, which were unique. Though great use of Hawaiian here, as Mohala means to bloom. On a side note, the Crunchyroll version of this week's ending sequence was different from the broadcast version, which previewed what I'm guessing is going to be the ending dance sequence for the Tropical-Rouge short movie, which included guest appearances from the Healing Good team. Obviously, I can't show it in its entirety here, but you can probably find it somewhere on YouTube. While this series has just been plain fun up until this point, I do appreciate that this week's outing was a bit more character-focused. Sango early on is becoming a character whom I think I admire and relate with the most in the show so far. She's not necessarily my favorite, I think that title belongs to the ever-entertainingly smug Laura. Still, this was a very good first outing for the Corsola of this team. I will admit, I wasn't totally expecting to get some good, subtle storytelling from a show like this, especially this early on, but they managed to pull it off. Little touches like Sango quietly going along with what everyone else wanted to do, and yet staring at the free-spirited Manatsu was some very well done visual storytelling. As a result, we could really get invested into her conflict, which I imagine was especially relatable to a lot of Japanese in their very by-the-numbers society, as while the show didn't completely denounce high-context mindsets as it does promote thoughtfulness towards others, it also shouldn't be absolute. Hell, even if you don't live in a high-context society, I think some of us can really relate with Sango's situation of being the odd one out. And against the much louder Manatsu and even Laura, I think it's good to have a much more grounded character to keep things balanced. Overall, other than some slightly less impressive fight animation, this is probably the strongest episode so far with easily the best storytelling. Next week, we'll see if a certain tiny senpai can write as good a story. Work on my Healing Good overview went on a little longer than I might have wanted to, a lot of real life stuff going on, but still, I think I'm almost done with it. I can't promise anything by the end of this week, but I can definitely say it'll be done within the next 2 or so. Believe me, I had a lot to say about the series, and the video itself ended up becoming a bit of a pseudo-toy Trinity video. You'll see what I mean when you watch it. So, look forward to it. And until then though, for now my friends, and remember watching an episode featuring the voice of Nadeshiko from Laid Back Camp? I feel like going on a camping trip myself. I forgot why he's been getting a lot of flash flood warnings recently.